Good afternoon, everyone. Today is the 7th of January, 2025. It's Tuesday afternoon. Mark has been reading through the book of Luke today. He's ready for the 23rd chapter of Luke. This is the account of Christ being charged with these false charges. It says the whole multitude rose and led him into Pilate. They began to accuse him, saying, "We found this fellow perverting the nation, forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, and saying that himself is Christ, a king. He never forbid to give tribute to Caesar. He said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, and unto things to God the things that are God." Pilate then asked him if he was a king of the Jews, and Jesus said, "Thou sayest it." Pilate said he found no fault in him, and they became more fierce, saying that he stirred up the people. And so he sent him to Herod, realizing he was in Herod's jurisdiction, and heard many things about him, hoped to see some miracles done by him. He questioned him with many words. The chief priests and scribes stood vehemently accusing him, and Herod set him at naught and mocked him and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe and sent him again to Pilate. So that basically, solidified the relationship between Pilate and Herod. They'd been at enmity before. When Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and said to them, "You brought this man to me. I've examined him, and I find no fault in him." And Herod, "I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done to him. I will chastise him and release him." And they cried out, "Away with this man, release unto us Barabbas." And they continued to cry out, "Crucify him." And Pilate sentenced that it should be as required. So the priest prevailed, and they led him away and had Simon of Cyrene bear Christ's cross. And Jesus said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children." He says, "There a time coming when they will begin to say, fall on us, and the hills cover us." And there was two malefactors, one crucified on the one and on the left. And Jesus cried out, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And the people stood and said, "Let him save himself if he's Christ, the chosen of God. He saved others, let him save himself." And they put a subscription over his head, King of the Jews. And then the one thief asked Jesus to remember him when he came into his kingdom. And Jesus said, "Today thou shalt be with me in paradise." And there was darkness over all the earth about the ninth hour, and the sun was dark, and the veil of the temple was rent in twain. And Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit," and he gave up the ghost. When the centurion saw what was done, he glorified God and said, "Certainly this was a righteous man." So anyway, Joseph of Arimathea went to Pilate and begged for the body of Jesus, and he gave it to him. And so I'm going to turn this over to Mark and have him read this full account of what happened there during the time of the trial of Jesus.
Luke chapter 2-3. The whole multitude of them arose and led him unto Pilate. They began to accuse him, saying, We found this fellow perverting the nation, forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ the King. And Pilate asked him, saying, Art thou the King of the Jews? And he answered and said, Thou sayest it. Then said Pilate to the chief priests and the people, I find no fault in this man. They were the more fierce, saying, He stirreth up the people, teaching throughout all Jewry, beginning from Galilee to this place. When Pilate heard of Galilee, he asked whether the man were a Galilean. And as soon as he knew that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent to Herod, who himself also was at Jerusalem at that time. And when Herod saw Jesus, he was exceeding glad. He was desirous to see him of a long season, because he had heard many things of him. He hoped to have seen some miracle done by him. Then he questioned with him in many words, but he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. And Herod with his men of war set him at naught, and mocked him, and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. And the same day Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before they were enmity between themselves. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers of the people, saith unto them, Ye have brought this man unto me as one that perverted the people. And behold, I have examined him before you, have found no fault in this man, touching those things whereof ye accuse him. No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. For of necessity he must release one unto them at the feast. They cried out all at once, saying, Away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas, who for a certain sedition made in the city, and for murder was cast into prison. Pilate, therefore, willing to release Jesus, spake again to them. They cried, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. He said unto them the third time, Why, what evil hath he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. The voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave a sentence that it should be as they required. They released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Jesus to their will. As they led him away, they laid hold upon Simon the Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, so he might bear it after Jesus. And there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also wailed and lamented him. But Jesus, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming, in the which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bare, and the paps which never gave suck. Then shall they begin to say, The mountains fall on us, and to the hills cover us. For if they do these things, green tree, what shall be done in the dry? There were also two other malefactors led with him to be put to death. And when they were come to the place which is called Calvary, there they crucified him, the malefactors, one on the right hand and the other on the left. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. And the people stood beholding, and the rulers also with him, derided him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, he be Christ, the chosen of God. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming to him and offering him vinegar, saying, If thou be the King of the Jews, save thyself. For the superscription also was written over him in letters in Greek and Latin and Hebrew, This is the King of the Jews. One of the malefactors which were hanged railed on him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and save us. But the other answering rebuked him, saying, Hast not thou feared God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds, but this man hath done nothing amiss. He said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. It was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was dark, and the veil of the temple was written in the midst. And when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hand I commend my spirit. Having said thus, he gave up the ghost. Now when the centurion saw that was done, what was done, he glorified God, saying, Certainly this was a righteous man. And all the people that came together to that sight, beholding the things which were done, smote their breasts and returned. And all his acquaintance, the woman that followed him from Galilee, stood afar off, beholding these things. And behold, there was a man called Joseph, a counselor, and God was a good man, a godly man, and just. The same had not considered the counsel indeed of them. He was of Arimathea, a city of the Jews, who also himself waited for the consolation of the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom of God. This man went into Pilate and begged the body of Jesus. And he took it down and wrapped it in linen and laid it in a sepulchre that was hewed in stone, where never man before was laid. And that day was a preparation, the Sabbath day drew on. And the women also which came with him from Galilee, followed after and beheld the sepulchre and how his body was laid. And they returned and prepared spices and ointments and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I hope you all have a good day today. God bless.